Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the final installment with Mike McLeod, who runs Grow Now. And Mike, you're covering social this evening, correct? So,
Yes, I am. The original topic was social and tech, but I think we can stick to just social. I think we've done
okay,
enough.
okay,
I think we've done enough tech.
we've hit that one. Yeah.
It's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are discussing executive functioning in social aspects, and thank you so much for donating to your PTAs. I like that plug, Michelle. That makes programs like this possible. And also at SSALD, we've partnered with Parent Edge. If you guys have something else that you'd like to hear about or learn about in the coming year, please let us know. You can reach out to Michelle or myself, and we're looking for more content in the new school year next year. Michelle?
Yes, so I'm with Mercer Island Parent Edge, also a part of the PTA Council, and we are very happy to partner with the SSALD with Special Services and Learning Differences group. And we've had a wonderful turnout for this program. There's a lot of interest, a lot of parents who are seeking this information, and we've had some really fun discussions online. And I hear parents saying, I'm really still thinking about this from last week's presentation. So thank you all for joining us, and for those who will be listening to the video, we hope this has been helpful. And we are excited to welcome Mike back for our fourth session. Mike, as we mentioned, is with Grow Now ADHD. He is a national and international speaker. He said he's been very busy with his professional development speaking engagements, which I can imagine. Part of his work is author of the Executive Function Playbook, and they have a great website with lots of tools. So I'm going to let Mike take it away so we don't take away time from all the great things he has to share with us.
And Michelle, there's a talk group after this
Yes.
um, that is happening next week, right?
Yes, I'll share that information. I'll send it out afterwards. Mercer Island Parent Edge, headed by one of our members, Jackie Tan, is going to be facilitating a small group discussion for parents who want to kind of process everything that Mike has talked about. And as we know, for parents, that connection is really important, even just to talk to someone else who is having a similar experience so that you don't feel alone. And so I will share that information out. Forgetting the date. Is it on the second? Jesse, do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I will make sure and share that before the end of the program. But Mike, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It's a bittersweet thing that we are at our fourth meeting. I have absolutely loved meeting with every single one of you and doing these webinars and all the side conversations and emails and everyone calling and reaching out afterwards. I absolutely love it. This community that you all have and have built is a real strength and a real testament to your guys' dedication in parenting, education, and bettering yourselves and your kids. So you guys really have something special going on over there, and it's really incredible. And to be a part of it, first to be a part of the schools, which I had a great experience with. I wish there were more teachers in that room, to be honest. But overall, it was a great experience. And now to work with the parents, this has been an overwhelmingly positive experience. And of course, at the end, I'll share my email and my cell phone number so we can all keep in touch. And hopefully, we find more ways to work together. But today, we're going to talk about the third zone of executive functions. We already talked about academic executive functioning last week and some of the struggles that kids have in school with being able to regulate and motivate and initiate, persist, and complete non-preferred academic tasks. We talked about the number one most common symptom of ADHD, which is home executive functions, really breaking parents out of that mindset that ADHD is only a school-based problem and executive functions are skills you need for school, when in reality, it's the home and it's the parents and it's the mom that sees the majority of the behaviors because that ADHD brain responds best to structure and condition, which is school, and it responds worst to unstructured and unconditional relationships, which is in the home. So self-regulation towards parents and siblings, the ability to initiate, persist, and complete non-preferred, non-screen-based tasks in the home is a significant challenge for ADHD kids. But overall, tonight we're talking about social executive functions. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. The social challenges of ADHD kids is the true heartbreak of ADHD, these kids that are so socially motivated, that really, really, truly need that social connection and outdoor play and peer-to-peer involvement. And it's a struggle for so many of them. And it's also one of the most beautiful things to come out of this neurodiversity movement of the past 10, 15 years is we inappropriately focused on external social skills for far too long. And we threw kids into these lunch bunches and these social skills groups. And we focused on external eye contact, circles of communication, topic maintenance. And we taught kids that social situations are very rigid and black and white and rules based, and in so many ways just increase their social anxiety when it's really the internal social executive functioning skills. You'll be pretty hard pressed to find a single child that's gone from social group to social group, social skills group, and it actually improved their social lives outside of that social group. Because we have to remember, that's the goal of all therapy, all counseling, all coaching, to improve quality of life. We've gotten so conditioned to tracking data within the sessions, the structured, controlled environment of the session. Oh, your kid did so well in the session. Great, but is it carrying over into the home? Is it carrying over into the classroom? Is it carrying over into relationships? And that's what social executive functioning is all about. So, this whole topic of social skills, social executive functioning, let's talk about it. So, social executive functioning are the executive functioning skills that are required to socially navigate through life successfully. Not only make the friends, but also keep the friends, maintain those social relationships. And this cannot be understated in any way, shape, or form. This is that human beings are social animals. We need relationships. I don't care if you're an introvert. I don't care this. You can have one really good friend you spend a lot of time with. Some people need lots of friends. Some need one or two, but you need real relationships. It's right there on the hierarchy of needs: food, water, shelter, relationships. And in today's age, where kids tend to be on screens in the house, and big tech markets these things as social experiences, and many of us have started to believe their propaganda that Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox, Snapchat are social experiences. They are not, period. They are not gaining skills. They are not improving their social lives by doing screen-based interactions. Those are not really social tools. Show me a single child who got a phone, got Roblox, got Minecraft, and became more social. Exactly. So overall, social executive functioning is a social learning challenge. These are the ADHD kids that are lacking self-awareness. They're lacking the ability to read the room. So they don't pick up on social cues, pick up on social learning basically through osmosis, like some of the neurotypical kids do. So a true inability and difficulty to learn social skills, social learning at a typical pace in a more organic way. It's a learning challenge, not a mental health issue. Often gets misdiagnosed and mislabeled as social anxiety, which is a fear that others are talking about you, looking down on you, a more intense, irrational fear that's true diagnosable social anxiety, versus social executive functioning, a learning challenge, not gaining the social skills naturally, organically, and having that developmental delay. So social executive functioning is not due to a difficulty reading social cues in time, more associated with autism spectrum. It's definitely not a lack of empathy. We're going to learn why it's often misdiagnosed as my child seems to have no empathy, when in reality, it's a lack of perspective taking skills. It's not due to a lack of positive peer models. They tend to have that in other environments that we discount. And it's definitely not due to poor parenting, parents being blamed for their child's social situations. Social executive functions and delays in social executive functions. Here's some examples. Kids that may be overly bossy during play, over talking about your specific comfort zone and your interests, greater difficulty in unstructured social situations. For many ADHD kids, that struggle with social executive functions, recess, the unstructured time of recess, might be the hardest part of the day. Remember, the ADHD brain responds best to structure. So they may do well in the classroom where it's structured, but all of a sudden recess. Do I play in the playground? Do I play a sport? Do I walk around? Who do I talk to? What do I do? That unstructured time can be very, very hard for ADHD kids, even though recess is by far the most important part of the day, not just for them, but for all kids. I'm a big fan of recess all the way up until 12th grade. Difficulty keeping friends, thinking they are being bullied, but their actions are pushing others away, where in many ways the negative feedback they're getting is because of some of the things they may have done and just not had the self-awareness to be aware of it. Smothering peers at times. You tend to see this with females with ADHD. Retreating into the online world of video games where it's posed as social, but of course is not. Lacking the understanding that peers spend time with others outside of school. So yes, this is still happening. People are getting together in unstructured play-based formats outside of school, but not understanding that and retreating into the online world of games. An inappropriate sense of humor, saying things for shock value, which we'll talk about. Girls often self-diagnosing at times based on some things they may have read on Discord or Reddit. Obsession with making others laugh, that instant gratification, just like the screen addiction and getting a massive dopamine rush from a touch screen. Also calling out in class, getting others to laugh, and kind of, at the expense of your own behavior and your own sort of reputation or self-image, thinking, I need to make others laugh. If I can make someone laugh, then they must like me. That's that sort of thing, that instant connection of, oh, I made them laugh, they must like who I am. Real difficulty with self-awareness. And here's a great question for all of us. Have you ever met an adult who acts this way, right? Those kinds of things. Because, that's what ADHD is. It's this overall challenge. And the adults where the awareness was not there when they were kids. That's a really great thing to think about. You meet adults that act this way, yeah, these things are real. And parents will ask, how long until I see progress? How long until we start to see some social success? We know ADHD is all about inconsistency across environments. It's never going to be linear progress, and there will be many ups and downs because social is so fluid and dynamic. No two social situations are the same. No two social environments and people are the same. So being patient and working through the inevitable ups and downs. Neurotypical kids go through the roller coaster of emotions with relationships. They make friends, they lose friends, they move from friend group to friend group, they get in relationships, they have breakups. That's part of being a kid. Every single one of us had it, right? And our kids are going to have that too. And we need to make sure that we don't get too heavily involved. And with social executive functioning, when parents call me to learn about grown out services and social services, all the time that the number one parent concern is, how am I going to get my son to agree to do this? How am I going to get my son to agree to grow now? And that's exactly what it is. We have to remember it's a disorder of self-awareness. They don't even think it's hard for them to even recognize that they have a problem, right? Especially if they're retreating into the online world of games and living in the virtual world, they probably think the real world is fine. So if you approach them and say, hey, I signed you up for social executive functioning, or I signed you up for Grow Now, they're going to push back on it. And that's why you start with a couple of parent coaching sessions and learn how to bring your child on. Many students with ADHD will get defensive at the idea of improving their social skills because it's all about that self-awareness and perspective taking. So remember, that foundation of self-language, internal language, is the foundation that allows us to access the 4 pillars of self-awareness, regulation, motivation, and evaluation. Its verbal working memory is self-directed talk and stated intentions. So we are only socially successful when we are using our internal voice to keep us attentive, to keep us warm, to keep us present to that person. Like, have you ever talked to someone and you can just tell they're not present in the conversation? They're distracted. They're thinking about someone else. Their facial expression, their body language lets them know they don't want to be in this conversation anymore. They don't want to be doing this right now. We need to use our working memory skills to stay self-directed towards the communication partner. Relationships are 50-50. Social reciprocity is exactly what these kids struggle with. So a lack of an internal dialogue that helps us adjust our words and behaviors so we can ensure that others feel comfortable around us. That's the number one deficit of social executive functioning, that lack of that internal dialogue. The main reason why they're so prompt dependent at home and you, the parent, have to be their executive functions at all time because they don't have that voice inside of their head, that brain coach that is helping them notice and do. Notice and do. So you end up having to notice and do. And you get burnt out as a parent because you're the executive functioning system for the entire family. And this is also negatively impacting them socially. So if you are not having an internal dialogue, you are not going to improve socially and gain social skills. That is the core thing. We have to build this internal voice to give them an opportunity to be successful socially. And the way we do it at Grow Now, because obviously the science behind social skills social skills groups are very weak. So here's how we do it based on actual research. Unstructured play, hanging out, less adult direction, and then break it down for them one-on-one. So in the very first session with a student who has some social executive functioning goals in their Grow plan, we'll work with the student one-on-one to focus on specific things before the unstructured social group. We'll focus on very specific things that others may do. So they're a little bit more prepared for behaviors, for interactions, for different personalities. So it's kind of like giving them a mental dress rehearsal of what might happen. We help create a couple of landmarks, points of focus, things to look for in their peers, little ideas to focus on. They create little landmarks and code words for them to think about. And you can also create different gestures, like almost like a pitcher and catcher in baseball, for when the adult, the clinician, is observing the group, can give a little gesture so they don't interrupt to help the child stay attentive or to be aware of those landmarks or points of focus. The kids really love that, and the teens tend to really love that aspect as well, the gestures, so you're not interrupting in the moment. How to breathe, listen, comprehend, take note of something you wanted to say but didn't. A great skill for kids with ADHD to attain. Things to learn from others. What thoughts did you give them? And do you want to see them again? So kind of working sort of through the mental dress rehearsal, the planning, the preparing, the organization of thoughts before having the social experience. Something that we all do naturally. We're in the car driving to go hang out with our friends. We're doing all of this in the car. We just don't even realize it. We're thinking about what it is. And when we were kids, we would drive to the parties, drive to our friend's house, and we would play it out in our minds first before getting there. We would have a little bit of social anxiety, a little bit of butterflies, right? And then we would finally get there, and we would be able to kind of use that negative feeling of prep to be more prepared once we got there. And then session 2, we do the actual social group where there is
Mike,
little.
can I ask you a quick question
Yeah, sure.
before we move on? So if you
Yep.
go back to that last slide, I remember at the first session we had, you said fewer words.
Yep.
So what would a conversation look like, say around specific gestures so that I was thinking through my head and I thought it's going to turn into a lecture. So how do you communicate in few words to explain like how you might know when you say are talking over someone, or how you might know, like, what would that exactly look like when you're talking to an ADHD kiddo?
So the gesture is what replaces the words. So we're using a gesture. So we create some sort of like hand signal to use with the kids to replace having to interrupt and use words at all. So for example, if you're talking over someone, maybe we'll do the gesture of just like, a quick little like zip of the mouth, or, a little like pump of the brakes kind of thing, or a timeout. And sometimes when you work with the kid to create what gestures do you like, give them some autonomy over it, they start to enjoy it. So each kid in the group has this one-on-one session before the group, and they work with the coach to create those gestures. The gestures, it's a very quick conversation. Obviously, it's sorry. Obviously, it's between the clinician and the student. It's not mom and dad with the child kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's really mom and dad who need to use 90% less language because of all those lectures in the home. This is more of a conditional relationship they respond better to. But using language to create those gestures is what eliminates the verbal altogether.
And then that sounds great for a younger child. How would you
Mhm.
help say, a high school teen gain some of those skills? Same things?
I would actually argue it works better with high school students.
Okay.
I've seen more success with the gestures with high school students than I have with some of the younger students. They seem to really enjoy it, and it's very non-invasive, and it's obviously like a little secret language between the coach and the student, and they
Mhm.
respond very, very well to it.
And they take it as a reminder, not as a criticism.
Yeah, I have never seen a negative.
Okay.
They're part of the planning process. They're
Okay.
part of the ones that help you create the gestures, right? So this is a one-on-one meeting where you decide what the gestures mean. So in the moment, I have not seen a male or female in any of our social groups respond negatively to the gesture. They seem to enjoy it, and you see a lot of progress from it.
Thank you. That description was helpful in kind of making it really tangible to understand how you work through that. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And feel free to interrupt at any time if anyone has any questions. And then session two, after the one-to-one meeting, we have our unstructured group where there is little to no adult direction. That's one of the main reasons why social skills groups are not evidence-based because there's too much adult direction, adult directed, not allowing for the fluidity of a social group. So the coach will just observe and take notes, provide the gestures and assistance when needed minimally, and focus on the environment to set up for success. So is there enough things for them to grab and play with and interact with and make sure there's, no screens in the area for them to get distracted by, and just make sure the environment is a safe, fun environment. Like if you go to our Grow Now office here in media and you walk in, a lot of parents who go there for the first time are like, am I in the right place? Because parents get so used to like, the scrubs, the lab coat, the couch you sit on. We literally created our office to look like they're in someone's basement. We have the couches, we have the tables, all these different things. We wanted the different rooms to look like basically your living room or your basement or a place where you would hang out with your friends. We want it to look as natural as possible. So creating that environment is the responsibility of the coach. And then the third session is where we do our one-to-one review. We start by asking the student to put their head down and make a mental movie of the group so it can be more of a refresher in their mind. So just make a mental movie so you can remember it because sometimes there's some time in between the social group and then this third review session. You ask them to describe it as best as they can with as many details. What was discussed? What did you do? How did you make others feel? How did you feel? Then we review the observation notes. Were the goals achieved? Did the gestures work? Was it a positive interaction? Do you want to see them again? What's the plan for next time for further success? And then part of that one-to-one meeting, where we're giving the kids a lot of autonomy and a lot of ownership over this, is we help them create sort of like a progress binder, where the kid does really most of the work, where they're sort of tracking what happened in the group, who did I interact with, who did I like, we're not asking them to write and do a lot of work. They can draw pictures, they can create images, they can use stickers, they can do PowerPoint. It's a really great way for them to think about how they are including more people in their lives and they're building their social circle, they're building their network. It's a really great way to build their self-image, their quality of life by tracking it visually for them because they're lacking that visual imagery memory skills. We really want them to be able to see their progress over time. And we've had some beautiful sessions with kids when their binder, starts to get pretty filled and we have a review session and sometimes the parents come in, and for them to see from page 1 all the way up to page, 20, 25, we've had, happy tears in the room and kids really, really excited about how they're feeling and all the people they do and all the things they do on the weekends and the evenings. It's a really beautiful thing. So in terms of these social executive functioning skills, the number one social executive functioning skill is perspective taking. What types of thoughts am I putting into others' heads? The number one foundational executive functioning skill is understanding when I do something, what kinds of thoughts am I giving them? Am I giving them kind of cringy thoughts? Because I talk about the same meme over and over again, or I'm doing shock-based value jokes. Am I giving them comfort feelings? Do they want to be around me? So overall metacognition and self-evaluation is very hard for these kids. It's very hard for them to take a bird's eye view of their behaviors and recognize things. So if metacognition and self-evaluation of yourself is hard, think about how hard it is for these kids to then do metacognition plus self-evaluation times a million, where not only are you evaluating yourself, you're evaluating what others are thinking about you. So this can be very, very tough for these kids. So what kinds of thoughts am I putting into others' heads? If I'm having one-sided conversations, does not think or show interest in others, inflexibility, misunderstanding others, right? How do others perceive them? Why do others get frustrated with me? Difficulty with humor. In elementary school, we see difficulty with perspective taking skills when kids are bossy, controlling in play, difficulty with imagination, cooperative play. Other kids do what they want and reject them and may think they're being bullied. What response did they provoke in others? And elementary school, they may become more emotionally reactive towards others and then move on and act like nothing happened. We see that a lot with the lack of perspective taking skills with much younger kids. And really, when do these things first appear? Right around second grade is when these social executive functioning delays start to become noticeable to teachers and school staff. Because below second grade, it's a lot of that, we're all friends, we're all family, everyone together. And right around second grade is the kids have now been together long enough. They have ideas of what each person is like. You start to have your friend groups and those kinds of things. So teachers start to notice this as young as second grade. But parents typically do not notice this until fifth grade, middle school, when a lot of kids are going out and doing things, and their child tends to wake up, go to school, come home, stay home, and is not building their social network. So fifth grade is when these really become huge, when the social executive functions tend to really impact their overall self-worth and self-image. In middle and high school, a lot of those one-sided conversations and struggle to take these friendships outside of school. And this is when you really see that full retreat into the virtual world, which of course is not a real social experience. They may try very hard to befriend peers of a higher social status who will not accept them. You see that a lot with middle school kids trying to focus on an extra focus on popularity, right? And, this is one of those slides that's incredibly awkward to make and weird to make, but it's true. We have to think about it. Like ADHD kids in middle school and high school tend to go for that shock value. And I've worked in enough schools where I see this on literally a daily basis, where you see really dark, strange memes, lots of 9/11 jokes, Hitler jokes, politics jokes, where you just say things for shock value that are going to get a rise out of someone, and tending to overuse these kinds of things because of the intense emotion it creates. So it's just one of those things that you just see time and time again are, very, very shock value based jokes. Here's a great image from my podcast co-host, the ADHD Dude. We do the ADHD parenting podcast together. I hope many of you have checked it out. And here's sort of just this overall hierarchy of, different relationships, helping kids be able to understand. Because so many kids today get so lost into the virtual world, they may have a gaming friend who they never even talk to in real life. They may have a basic acquaintance who they know their name and maybe someone you go to school with, and they may think that person's their really good friend or their best friend. It's very important to help them understand different hierarchies of relationships, of acquaintances and classmates, and maybe an activity friend. Then we get to the top of that pyramid where it's true friendships. And obviously, on top of that squiggly line there, the top three are the ones that really improve quality of life, are those major ones that bring a lot of relationships and experiences into their lives. So helping kids sort of understand the different relationships, labeling them, seeing the visual of the pyramid, the hierarchy, is something we do in some of our social executive functioning sessions. And it's a great tool that many we've shared with parents and they've used as well. So what makes perspective taking so difficult? All social situations are context dependent. Another reason why these rigid social skills tend to have more of a negative impact and increase social anxiety and make them more antisocial. And it takes significant time to strengthen. When we teach a child social appropriateness, which is through perspective taking skills, we're teaching them to be accountable to others, accountable in terms of people's perspectives, their feelings, their experiences, allowing them time to speak, allowing them time to do the things they want to do, allowing them to share and take turns. All of these things are accountability to others, being a part of a classroom, being a part of a family, being a part of a team, being a part of a club, sport activity is accountability to others, a true society, a true community. It's all social executive functions. So, of course, the biggest question is, what do we do? How do we build perspective taking skills? These are best taught in the moment. So incredibly important. We don't want to wait. We want to focus on the moment. ADHD kids thrive on purposeful recognition and praise. Most important, pointing out what they did right, not wrong. So when you see them using perspective taking skills, when you see them taking turns in very quick, short, be short and be on message. I like the way you phrase that right there. I like the way you gave him a turn. I like the way you did that. Quick and easy. Not too many words. I see you gave him a turn. I see you talked about something that you didn't want to talk about. Just quick and easy, saying it out loud, pointing out what they do right. But we have to remember, peers are the true judge of a child's social skills, not the adults or not the therapists. There's lots of ADHD kids that may navigate closer towards the adults in the room and stay away from the peers, or go towards younger kids than same age peers. It's their same age peers that are the true judge of their relationships, right? The adults and therapists are going to get a totally different version of this child than the peers do. And we need to focus on the people their age, the people they're with most of the time. So we have to increase awareness around this perspective taking skill. How are their words and behaviors perceived by others? Do we want them to hear it from us, the loving, unconditional parents, or do we want them to hear it from peers where it's more conditional, where it's going to really affect like a rejection sensitive dysphoria kind of thing? So we want to teach them the language, a neutral comment, a clutch comment, and a cringe comment. We can use some of this language in the safe place of the home. We don't have to worry about shame or embarrassment because we're in the safe place of the home where we can be very honest and build this awareness. So, for example, explaining to our child, when Sarah came over, she was kind of nervous because she has never been here before. It helped her feel more comfortable when you asked her if she wanted anything to eat and if she wanted to play a game. Her thoughts went from good clutch to great clutch because you thought about her feelings. I could tell because she looked really happy when she left and told you she would text you later, right? And then we have some more. I'm feeling a little bored. So this is something parents can do and externalize their self-talk. I'm feeling a little bored that you're having a one-way conversation about Minecraft right now. I wish you would bring up a topic we can both talk about. That was really nice that you let your sisters go first. I was having pretty cringy thoughts in the restaurant because the lady at the next table was talking so loudly on her phone. So like kind of using your environment as an example. I had clutch thoughts about that man who helped the lady who fell because he didn't know her, but he showed he was thinking about her. So externalizing that. So that's perspective taking skills. And the next social executive functioning skill is situational awareness, the ability to stop what you're doing, stop what you would have done on impulse, and read the room. Process the environment, look what's happening, and enter a social environment and make yourself look like everybody else in that room, like entering a library and being quiet like everybody else, entering a room and sitting down like everybody else. So a big thing we have to do here is build that internal dialogue. And one of the best ways we can do this at school and at home is by using this great idea called Stop J, which helps them create this internal self-script. When they really don't have that internal voice yet, we want them to start to build an internal self-script by running through Stop J. So number one, S, the space. Where am I right now? I'm in the science room. What time is it? Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Objects, what do I need right now? I need my lab notebook, my computer, and my pencil, and my calculator. People, who needs my attention right now? My lab partner, the person sitting next to me, and the teacher. And job, what is my job? My job is to listen to the directions about the lab and then work with my partner to have a successful lab and get a good grade on this lab assignment. So helping them run through this. One thing we teach our kids at Grow Now is every time you go through a doorway and you enter a new room, just very quickly go through it. That's the trigger, is a doorway. You walk through a doorway, just very quickly ask yourself, what's the space? What's the time? What's the object? What's the people? What's the job? And it starts to help you be more attentive to the moment. It's a great mindfulness activity to build and ask yourself those questions, be more aware of what's happening, be able to notice and do and be a part of your environment. So this social, and then we have social relatedness, developing a relationship beyond shared interests. This is where you happen to hear a lot of kids today, you hear them say, but we have nothing in common. We can't be friends. We have nothing in common. As if they'll only be friends with someone who is a direct clone of themselves, right? We have to be able to utilize empathy. And this is very, very important for boys. Boys build so much of their self-image, their self-worth from their peer group. And we think boys only, like I hear parents all the time of, I have to give my kid Roblox. It's all they talk about at school. I have to give them Snapchat. It's all they talk about. No, let's not dumb down boys. Boys talk about a lot of things, and boys need social connection, related connection, just as much as girls do. Boys need that, they need to have someone they can be vulnerable to outside of the family. Very, very important for boys. And they talk about all sorts of things, their thoughts and their feelings. To the untrained ear, they only talk about football. They only talk about video games. They only talk about YouTube. No, they talk about a lot of very important things that builds their character. Because humans connect through shared emotions and shared experiences. Because think about it. If you tell me something sad, what do you expect from me? You would expect me to provide some sort of comfort and to show that I feel your pain. If you tell me something with enthusiasm, what do you expect from me? To show enthusiasm for you for something you experienced and I didn't. Some ADHD students may need some more time to process those emotions. So with social reciprocity, 50-50 relationships, many students with ADHD get used to taking and not giving. So sometimes when kids spend too much time at home, they get stuck in this mindset of high giving, low expectations, where their relationship with their parents is all take, 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 and no give. And it throws off their concept of social reciprocity. And if the parent does too much for them and the kid does not have a competent role in the house, there's very low expectations, it can negatively impact their social relationships because their brain is not hardwired towards 50-50 relationships. So this lack of self-awareness also creates a lack of self-advocacy. We need our kids to be able to stay true to themselves when they're with their peers. Express your internal wants and needs. Ask for assistance in an effective way if they feel they've been harmed and those kinds of things. So self-awareness and self-advocacy are also social executive functioning skills, because this is a huge part of being who you are, and you showing your strengths and you self-advocating in social relationships, a big, huge thing. So we have to remember that social executive functioning skills are based in language. You have to be able to talk to your brain and visualize in those social environments. So what parents can do, model your internal voice so that they can know what perspective taking sounds like those examples I gave earlier. You can help them understand cause and effect, their behavior, their language, and the feeling that gives others. Let them know that when they say those things, it gives me cringy thoughts. When you only talk about this one thing, it gives me cringy thoughts. When you constantly talk over me, it gives me cringy thoughts. They need to hear it from you, their safe person, instead of hearing it directly from their peers at school. Build awareness to others' emotions using video clips from shows. If you're sitting down watching a TV show or a movie with your kids, I'm a huge fan of family movie night, and families watching TV together. That is not a screen. Remember, screens are internet, not TV. Pointing out emotions and social experiences in shows are fantastic. So it's a great way to maybe pause it, talk about it, pause it during when something is said or something happens, and ask them, what do you think might happen next? What do you think's going to happen when I press play again? What do you think she's thinking in her mind? What do you think he's going to say back to her? A great way to get them start to thinking about what's coming next. And we want to help them understand how their responses or a lack of a response can be perceived by others. So this is a great place to practice at home so they're more equipped in these situations. And another great thing to do with these kids that struggle with holding information in mind is to front load them with as much information as possible before they go into a situation where you anticipate they may not be sure how to respond to others' emotions. So you're driving them to a birthday party, a play date, a school activity. Make sure you give them as much information as possible about what it's probably going to be like, what's going to be expected of them. And, you can ask a lot of declarative language-based questions to help them think about it and go through that mental dress rehearsal before they get there, because chances are on the ride there, their mind's all over the place thinking about preferred comfort zone tasks. We want to front load them with information and ask questions to get them visualizing it first before going on their own. So remember, one of the best things we have to do, this is a great thing from the Institute of Child Psychology, when it comes to building these skills, they've had a great post earlier about 8 battles you do want to pick with your child. What are different things you do want to make sure your kid is doing? And the best thing is the outside fight. Make your kids go outside and play. I hope that is something that comes out of these parent training sessions that we have, that, more parents network, more parents reach out to each other and say, hey, can we get our kids together they can come to my house on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They can go to your house on Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday. The more you guys can be a real community and get your kids together and get them outdoors and get them playing. There's nothing more beneficial to kids than outdoor nature-based play. There is decades and decades of research that show that when kids are in nature, they are more regulated and they're having real experiences. There's something magical about being out around trees, in the grass, outdoors, regardless of the weather. It is something that needs to be a necessity. A lot of parents like to have checklists of clean your room, do your homework, do your chores, then you get screens. Well, if you're going to have it that way, you're going to want to add 1 hour of outdoor play, and then you get your screens. Like, this needs to be a non-negotiable, because executive functions and brain health underlie academic performance and true life skills. Basic cognitive functions related to attention and memory facilitate learning, and these functions are enhanced by physical activity and higher aerobic fitness. And that is all about outdoor play. Outdoor play is the classroom for executive functions. We want to strengthen executive functions. We have to make outdoor play a necessity. So studies show that outdoor play in humans and play fighting, like that kind of thing, benefit growth of the prefrontal cortex. Play, nature-based play, being seen as the antidote to changes in amygdala size, impulsivity, dysregulation, trauma, stress, and executive functions. It is so amazing what happens when we get our kids outdoors and playing. I'll finish with this real quick here. I think this is really good. One of the best things, a lot of what parents can really do for these kids, for our kids, is, we have to teach them, habituation, exposure therapy, right? We have to teach them that being uncomfortable is okay. So much of it is focused on skills, and how do I get them to be successful? Well, a lot of it is learning to tolerate discomfort. A lot of social situations are uncomfortable. A lot of school is uncomfortable. Chores is uncomfortable. Maybe outdoor play is uncomfortable. By staying in a situation, you become used to it, like getting into a colder pool, and it's cold at first, but then you get used to it. The child will take each step on a ladder gradually and with repetition, with time. We don't just do it once, we do it over and over again until it no longer evokes anxiety. So this is one of the fascinating things we're seeing on the anxiety side of things. Obviously, this is an ADHD executive functioning series we're doing, but on the anxiety side of things, I talk to doctors all the time where they're sending out a lot of, all points bulletins to psychiatrists, psychologists, and saying, hey, we've been treating anxiety wrong for the past 10, 20 years by accommodating the anxiety, when really we need to expose them more to the things that make them anxious to build this systemic desensitization, where we've seen such a rise in anxiety because we were so focused on labeling emotions and doing these things and helping the kids avoid the things that make them anxious and getting them too aware of their feelings, where they were getting stuck, where we need to focus more on resiliency and grit and perseverance, real predictors of success, building skills through experience, going from the fixed to the growth mindset. So one of the best things parents can do, it's don't focus so much on skills in the moment. Really, it's all about encouraging our kids to be brave, face their fears, and tolerate discomfort. We do this gradually and by guiding them to face their anxieties and not give up. So we can give them the tools to use their internal language, visualize themselves, complete non-preferreds before preferreds, use their future thinking to mental time travel, see yourself in a different time and space, being successful, having those friends, getting that good grade, putting the screens down, and achieving their dreams. Tolerating discomfort now, failure and discomfort now for long-term success. Every single one of you adults here today who has a successful career, family, life, you did that through failure and discomfort. And every single one of you know that. And we have to be able to provide that for our kids. If we teach our kids that skills, strength, and success comes from feeling good all the time, then we're not giving them a realistic view on life. And one of the best things we can do as parents is never praise ability. You're so smart, you're so strong, you're so fast, you're this. Always praise effort. You really studied. I saw how much you studied to get that grade. I saw you reaching out to your friend to set up that hangout, so you made some new friends and had a great time. I saw you take the leap to sign up for that activity, and now you're loving going every Wednesday afternoon. Focus on the ability, the journey, focus on the effort and the journey, not the ability, a huge aspect. And this is really what it's all about. We focus on language, social skills, executive functions, resiliency, mental flexibility, and this is every single parent's goal. How do I improve my child's quality of life and improve their self-worth? So this is really what it's all about, and we do that when we take an executive functions-based approach. And here, these are the 3 true predictors of success for kids. If they can make friends and keep friends, if they can manage their emotions, If they can manage their life and independent problem solving, then we can feel good about ourselves. It's not their transcripts and their grades that let us know they're going to be okay in life. It's these three things right here. So remember, executive functioning skills are a greater predictor of success than IQ. Building these skills right here. Here are my two parenting books that we've talked about a lot: the Executive Functioning Playbook, the Parent Empowerment book, and the workbook for parents to sit down with their spouse, their partner, or a trusted friend, fill out those worksheets, create the structure, and then use those with their kids. It's not for your kid to sit down and do worksheets with you. It's for you to do it with your partner and build that structure in the home. And I also made sure everyone received a copy of the Tech Grow Plan to help you decrease and eliminate unnecessary screen use in your home. One of my podcasts where I read education books and child development books and did one podcast per episode. And here's the ADHD Parenting Podcast that I talked about a lot, a great resource for parents to hear evidence-based information, none of that social media feel-good stuff. And here's all my information here. So I would love if you guys would email me, call me, text me, send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know you were a part of this great Mercer Island program, whether you're here live or watching the recording. Just reach out and send me your thoughts and let me know your thoughts, because I can't stress enough, every single kid is different. Every single kid with ADHD is different. So maybe the information I described applied to you, maybe it didn't. And hearing from parents and hearing their unique stories only helps me improve these kinds of presentations I do. So I love Seattle. I love Mercer Island. I love this community. So I would love it if you guys would keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Mike, for all of the wisdom that you dropped on us. And I think that these videos will be useful for parents for a long time. So we're grateful to have them. Thank you for coming and sharing, and everyone for attending.